Welcome to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Join us as we review our favorite RPGs, collectible card games, MMOs, video games, PC games, and bring up interesting topics and things that we'd like to share with everyone. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back to RPG A Day 2015. So, August the 23rd, the perfect game for you. This is a completely complicated question. So, since usually I'm GMing most games, first off, I'd like to say it's going to be who I'm gaming with, so it's got to be friends that I enjoy spending time around, which pretty much that's all the people I ever really game with. I mean, so that covers the perfect game is with people that I enjoy spending time with. But as a GM, I would have to say for the perfect game, it would either be fantasy or sci-fi settings. And then to complicate things up, I would set up the game with my players in advance along the lines of Dresden Files RPG, where you do city creation as a group, where it's collectively you come up with the city, the location, the faces of different factions, the threats, the themes. For the perfect game, let's just go ahead and say we're saying 5th edition D&D at this point. It would be collaborative world building where we make the countryside that we're going to be adventuring in, the kingdom and the main cities that we're going to run into. Then I'd want the group to come up with 4 threats. 2 threats around level 1, a threat around level 5, and then a threat around level 10. The reason why I want the group to come up with me as a whole with those, so that way as we're playing, if all of a sudden these level 2 or 3 characters see the level 5 threat or the level 10 threat come around, like say the level 10 threat's a dragon, and the level 5 threat's a rampaging horde of orcs, they already know from experience when they made the game that these characters are way higher level than them. So that way you could get the realistic feel of the players going, oh shit, that's a shitstorm coming, we need to turn tail and run. As opposed to in some adventures, groups see you throw something at them and they immediately assume, well, if this is being thrown at us, it's a fair fight and we can take it. Until all of a sudden the can of whoop-ass gets broke open and they realize, oh shit, we better run. If they have the hit points or the ability to take whatever punishment's coming at them before they can try to run and pick the group up as a whole. Then, of course, I'd like them to come up with themes for their characters. Sort of, in Dresden Files, they use aspects, which is basically a short sentence that surmises what your character does, you know. Like a paladin who's known for looking dirty around the edges could be a knight in not-so-shining armor. Even though he's a paladin, he could be looking really rough and tumble. Well, once the group would make the theme threats, city, area, countryside, everybody making sure that everyone's giving a little bit of input, so that way it's not only my world, it's our world, which I always really like the idea when everyone feels it's our world, not just something the GM wrote up in private and probably will only be telling you 10% of, maybe 20%. That way they pretty much are telling me what they want their world to look like and what they want it to feel like. Then here's the one that would make it really interesting from a GM point of view. I would want each player to come up with a theme that they want their character to have. Basically, it could be like deposed prince, thief with a heart of gold, knight in search of redemption, something along those lines that each one of them takes to heart as a theme that they want for their personal quest. Then I would adjourn the gaming session, let everybody go for food, whatnot, and come back, preferably the same day, but a few hours later. That way too, so it gives the group chances to research anything they want to add last minute in case we forgot something. Then I would assign the players the race and the class that I think as a role player, they either should learn to play or would be amazing to play. Because we all know those gamers at the table who only play 1 or 2 classes, when you know this person, if they were given the opportunity, would play an amazing paladin or would just knock it out of the ballpark as a bard. But they always play, say, ranger, fighter, or something, or always play a wizard character. It's something that will make them as a player and a person grow by getting out of the boundaries that they've put up for themselves. And then once everyone's been assigned their characters, which, and make sure nobody's butthurt and anything like that, so that way they'll enjoy playing the characters, then go about randomly assigning the stats, going back to the old classic D&D style, where you would roll 4d6 for all your stats, throw out your lowest roll, and the player can assign which stats go to which slots, so that way they're still maximized to play their class. Then I'd want them to come up with the faces for folks around town. So now that they're actually playing their character, they know the character they'll play. They come up with the specific folks that they want to interact with, pretty much still along the lines of Dresden RPG. Come up with the faces and the aspects of those faces, so that way it makes it easier for the GM to play the characters, because they know what's the archetype that this character's supposed to be. Then pretty much once we've set that up, have everyone pick a personal quest that they want to accomplish by the time they hit level 5, and a personal quest they want to accomplish by the time they hit level 10. The level 5 one can be something simple as, I wish to vanquish all orcs in the countryside. Or, I want to make sure that I've deposed the local thieves guild and taken them out for what they've done to me in my youth and my family. But then the level 10 one can be the, I wish to be knighted the greatest paladin of Kord in the kingdom. Or, I want to make sure I get my throne back by level 10 as the deposed prince of the countryside. So that way, the group has 2 goals that they'd like to accomplish. And of course, using the new 5th edition series, I would go ahead and use the inspiration that you use in 5th edition to go along with when they play to the aspect that they came up with for themselves, as well as when they accomplish their goal, they would get an action point, as well as you would get some kind of renown for having actually accomplished your quest, because the first, level 5 quest and the level 10 quest, those would be the type of things that bards would be talking about for quite a while in the countryside. So whenever they'd accomplish their goal, there's some kind of actual meta plot angle that the group would get a reward for if you accomplish this. Not something that would unbalance the game or anything, but just something along those lines. And when it comes to game balance, this would be the kind of game I want players to play to have fun, not that anyone has to be shanghaied being the cleric. So I wouldn't mind if someone along the group, you have a potion vendor that sells potions. Or if you would go for the alternate style of healers, like the druids or the bards, along those lines of, you're not the best healer, but I want something that fits what my players would enjoy playing. So the perfect game for me would be something that collaboratively as a group we have fun building, writing the world, creating it, and also after we'd get our characters and select the characters, this is the greedy part of me coming out. I would like the characters to then basically we'd call the game and have the characters write up a few pages of backstory for the character. Pretty much just like in Dresden Files, how you have your backstory, you have this is what made me what I am, this is what made me who I am, and this is what made me how I am today. And then when we get back together after they've written those stories, you could, of course, then make an aspect for each one of those, just like inspiration in D&D. Instead of being the little phrases that you get, they would be an aspect that wraps up what this part of your development became. Then, when we get together, one character has to have 2 other characters in their backstory in some way. It can be something simple as the princess, who's a paladin of Kord, actually saw this gutter snipe once out there, and because of that, she developed a soft heart for the peasantry. Or the wizard, once upon a time, was pushed by the fighter when he was walking through town because he saw the bookworm is just insufficient and tiny. So the wizard decided he would learn through magic the ability to keep anyone from pushing down those who are weaker than them, using brains over bronze. Just something along the lines of that each character knows each other, and they start out with more than just your typical 5 people walking to a bar and there's a wizened old man sitting against the fire with a staff. And then I would actually like, between each level, if the characters would write up a little bit of backstory for their characters. I'm just a junkie for getting to read a story someone else wrote, and finding out, when you read the story, what exactly the players are wanting their characters to do, to develop. And the one thing I always love is watching characters organically evolve on their own. There's nothing cooler than when you're watching a game happen and all of a sudden you realize that the character has left the player's control and has just evolved into its own creature. And even the person who plays that character realizes, I had to do it. It was completely in my character's realm of character. And then all of a sudden you all get that great aspect of just sitting back and realizing, holy shit, I did not see the story going to that place. So, I know this one went a little bit long, but I'd have to say the perfect game for me would be one that we cooperatively build the world, cooperatively decide what threats and menaces we want to face, what themes that are behind the world, and then collectively as a group make an amazing story. Preferably one that I podcast that everybody else can get to enjoy with. Hopefully one of these days I'll get to make that happen, and if that's the case, I hope I get to share it with all of you guys. Till then, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.